Maltings strives to do is bring things to Berwick that you wouldn't normally see. But some of the things we do bring things to Britain that you will never see. And you could be the greatest theatre in the country and still not do some of the things that we've done here. So the reason we're bringing Roman Baca here, Roman is that really rare individual. This is a ballet dancer who is an American who, after seeing what happened through 9/11, decided that he was going to join the Marines. So Roman effectively put down his ballet parts and joined the Marines. And not only did he join the Marines, he ended up in some of the toughest situations. So Roman spent his time as a machine gunner in Fallujah. And if you can imagine, when you're in that situation, you are at the very, very toughest, most demanding situations that most of us could never envisage or dream about through. After his time in Fallujah, and he returned back again, and the whole experience, his way of dealing and processing with those experiences, was to turn to ballet again. So Roman started using his work as a ballet dancer to work through and understand what he'd been through. At the time when we've been discussing this for over 2 years now, I had been very interested in Stravinsky's Rite of Spring. It's one of the most fundamental works from the 20th century. You cannot listen to a film score, you can't listen to a game without listening to Stravinsky's Rite of Spring and its influence. And I was fascinated by the whole process of ritual in the Rite of Spring and how that translated into the things we've been seeing in the news. So whether it's in America, it's the whole story of Abu Ghraib and about the way in which those troops, a tiny minority, but behaved in such a way in which there's this whole range of ritual work going on. And closer to home in Britain, if people think about Deep Cut, the fact that you have young teenagers joining the British Armed Forces, a large number of whom, largely expected, end up dead. And the work was done looking at ritual. So to me, there was a whole project there in which the Rite of Spring, really on the eve of World War I, is all about the role of ritual and how societies come together and someone is picked out for sacrifice and a whole ritual through to that. And then looking at what had happened in terms of both our own involvement, our recent forces. So when I came across, can't remember how, but I came across this guy in America, Roman Baca, who had not only done all of that work through, but was fascinated with the Rite of Spring itself. So we talked, we communicated, we used Skype, we got into email, found out more about each other, and we just said, why don't we develop a project in which we can create an opportunity for dancers and practitioners in the Northeast to get to grips with the Rite of Spring as a work, and also, from Roman's perspective, to explore from his unique insights into what ritual and that whole role of sacrifice that group works through to that means. And so that's why the project's formed. So where else in the UK are you going to find a former US Marine working through the Rite of Spring with dancers and on ritual? And not only that, we were very fortunate. I approached Stravinsky's publishers and explained what we're doing, and so they've given us consent to use the Stravinsky two players, the 4 hands, 1 piano version. So this is all happening live in our studio, and we supported Roman through his Fulbright scholarship. The reason why he's here is that we worked with him to create the opportunity to act as his sponsor for the Fulbright. So this is really unique. So, any of those things that you have seen about our culture, about news, about things which dominated our news lines, there is somebody coming here and working with us. And that's something I've wanted to do ever since our first project that we did with Wayne McGregor's Random Dance, which brought one of the UK's, in fact one of the world's great choreographers companies, and it came to Berwick and spent a week with us. After that, Stephen Burkoff coming to do a workshop through with us on the whole world of mime. So it is about creating opportunities that you won't see anywhere else, and certainly that wouldn't come here, and that's part of our role at the Maltings. But there's a further dimension to this too. Part of this week that we're working through with Roman, through other routes, I came across a former senior ranking Iraqi officer. His name is Nafi Mohammed. Nafi was, the best way to describe it, he was the equivalent of a sort of young Cliff Richard or an Engelbert Humperdinck as a singer and a poet in Iraq, who ended up being drafted into the Iraqi army by Saddam Hussein. And you bring in that glamour, bring in that personality. Sadly, you tend not to say no to if Saddam Hussein comes and asks you to do something. So Nafi ended up in the army. He was an officer. He ended up, therefore, fighting in the Iraq-Iran war, and then in the first Gulf War. And his experiences are almost the opposite of Roman's. Well, identical in one sense, both artists who find themselves in that war, but literally on other sides of a conflict. 2003, Nafi decided that he couldn't countenance another war. He left, ended up offering his services to the UK and America, but in the process of getting out the country, he managed to escape and get his family out. His friend, who planned a route out with him, decided to travel with his family. They didn't get out, and they are dead. So this is something whereby introducing them, I introduced them to each other, and we had a meeting through in Edinburgh, because Nafi now has reverted to his first love. He sings, he plays the oud, he makes his own peace, I guess, with his life it has been through that. And there's one work which Roman had developed, which is based on his experience stopping a family at a checkpoint. He was at the point lead through to that. And you can imagine, you've got out of your Humvee. There's a car stopped there. You're the person who has to go up and approach it, and establish what the risk is. And he came across a mother with a baby, a young mother with a young child, and it was that impact that has worked through to this piece. And for Nafi, his work, he mentioned that this was in Fallujah, that a lot of his songs and materials are inspired by particular places, and there's material and songs from Fallujah that he performs. And so they're going to be coming together during this week, and they're going to see if they can create new work from that. And the approach is, we'll share it. We'll share it at the end of the week. There's no compulsion, because this is quite an intense process. I think for both of them, what has drawn them is that we at the Maltings have created a space whereby, a senior Iraqi officer is joining through with a former American Marine, both of whom know Fallujah, both of whom seen service in those areas, and they're creating art together. So that's something that we can do. And I think in that case, although we are a small theatre, a long way away from London, as far away as you can get in England, we're able to do things and create things here, perhaps because we provide that space that you wouldn't see before. So I would say, if you have any interest in what has been one of the major stories of the last decade, if you have any interest in dance, if you have any interest, maybe not at all, in ballet or art or music, but you want to see that there's a way in which people who've been enemies, who have fought, spilled blood, dealt with the consequences, can, through art, come together and find a new way of working, I think you would want to see it.